In 1953, France aimed to crush Viet Minh forces by establishing a fortified base at Dien, a remote valley near Laos. Confident in their air superiority, French commanders believed the location would lure the Viet Minh into a conventional battle. Over 10,000 paratroopers and engineers were deployed to construct a network of bunkers and airstrips. However, they underestimated the Viet Minh's ability to transport heavy artillery through mountainous jungle terrain. This miscalculation would prove disastrous. While the French fortified their position, General Vo Nguyen Giap orchestrated a staggering logistical feat. Over 50,000 Viet Minh troops and 200 artillery pieces were secretly moved through 500 kilometers of jungle. Peasants disassembled guns, transporting them by bicycle and foot across rugged mountains. The French, reliant on aerial reconnaissance, failed to detect this mobilization. Giap's forces dug tunnels and camouflaged artillery on the hills overlooking Dien Bien Phu, positioning them for a devastating siege. On March 13, 1954, Viet Minh artillery erupted in a surprise barrage, destroying French airstrips and communication lines. Over 200 guns, hidden in the surrounding hills, pounded French positions with precision. The French, who believed their artillery superior, were stunned by the Viet Minh's coordinated fire. Within hours, the runway became unusable, cutting off vital supplies and medical evacuations. The siege had begun, trapping the French garrison in a shrinking perimeter under relentless shelling. Desperate to resupply their trapped forces, the French launched Operation Condor, a risky airbridge. But Viet Minh anti-aircraft guns, positioned in concentric rings, decimated transport planes. Only 30% of airdrop supplies reached French troops. The rest fell into enemy hands. Wounded soldiers piled up in makeshift hospitals without morphine or bandages. By April, monsoon rains turned the camp into a quagmire, further hindering air operations. The French were slowly starving. As the siege tightened, combat devolved into brutal trench warfare. Viet Minh sappers dug tunnels to plant explosives beneath French strongholds. Monsoon rains flooded trenches, forcing soldiers to fight waist-deep in mud. Night assaults featured hand-to-hand combat with bayonets and grenades. French morale crumbled as casualties mounted, with some units losing 80% of their men. One legionnaire wrote, "We are not soldiers anymore, just corpses waiting for our turn." By late March, Viet Minh human wave attacks overran key French outposts. Beatrice fell first, with 500 defenders killed or captured in 48 hours. Gabrielle followed, its Algerian troops annihilated by artillery and flamethrowers. French counterattacks failed disastrously, with tanks bogged down in mud. These losses shrank the French perimeter, leaving artillery exposed. A Foreign Legion officer radioed, "We are being buried alive." The Viet Minh now held the high ground and the initiative. In May, the Viet Minh launched their final assault. Waves of infantry stormed Eliane and Dominique, the last French strongholds. Sappers detonated underground mines, collapsing trenches. Legionnaires fought back with bayonet charges, but were overwhelmed. One French machine gunner fired 50,000 rounds in a single night before being overrun. By May 7th, the inner defenses collapsed. A survivor recalled, "The earth trembled, not from shells, but from thousands of enemy feet stampeding toward us." On May 7, 1954, French commander Colonel de Castries radioed Hanoi, "The end. No more ammunition." A white flag was raised over the command bunker. Viet Minh troops, many barefoot and malnourished, cheered as 10,000 French soldiers surrendered. The 56-day siege had cost 20,200 French lives and 8,000 Viet Minh dead. General Giap later admitted the victory came at near unbearable sacrifice. For France, it marked the end of colonial rule in Indochina. For French prisoners, surrender was only the beginning. Columns of captives were force-marched 500 kilometers to POW camps in monsoon rains. Without food or medical care, thousands died of dysentery and malaria. Viet Minh guards, themselves starving, showed little mercy. Only 3,290 of 11,721 prisoners survived captivity. One survivor recalled, "We ate rats and drank from puddles. The jungle swallowed men whole." This brutal aftermath underscored the war's human cost. Dien Bien Phu's fall forced France to the negotiating table. At the 1954 Geneva Conference, Vietnam was partitioned at the 17th parallel, a temporary measure that would ignite future conflicts. France withdrew its troops after 8 years of war, having lost 94,000 lives. The US, fearing communist expansion, soon replaced French influence in South Vietnam. Giap's victory proved guerrilla forces could defeat modern armies, a lesson that would echo through the Cold War.